This is a video on brains and biases in, that all of our brains have about what reality is and biases about the kind of worlds our brains construct to represent realities to us. Number one, social neuroscience is basically simply fMRI equipment being available so that we have 100 years of finding brain modules with particular functions, about 100 of them. And now with fMRI machines, we can have people do certain kinds of thought or mental operation and lay over those module maps which modules are active when, and see from glucose use patterns which brain modules are operating in what sequence to do certain thought processes. And the result is finding out that most of the increase in size in our brain was modules to handle social functions in other members of our species. Number two, Kahneman and Tversky proved that neoclassical economics' mathematical foundations were completely and always false by showing that there are 11 ways in which humans always misread statistical information about the world and therefore cannot optimize their utility as the necessary input for Ken Arrow's type of neoclassical economic price clearing, one equilibrium point. And therefore Kahneman and Tversky won a Nobel Prize. Tversky had died, so Kahneman got the Nobel Prize because he showed that economics is false, and in 11 ways. Error science. But it turns out that there are 180 ways that brains misread reality and misconstruct worlds, not just 11, if you include other researchers looking at a similar area. Number three, error science. There's a wonderful National Geographic cable TV channel which has got a program called Mayday, which looks at airplane crashes and then the investigations afterward to find their cause. And I like it because I teach causal thinking to students, and I correct causal thinking in dissertations and in fields with dissertations, correct causal errors of fields. And it's very, very interesting in complex systems like the air traffic system is as a whole. If you look at air traffic controllers and planes stacked around airports waiting for a landing strip, and luggage and passengers in and out, and new technologies and upgrades and maintenance and all that. It's a very complex system, and it turns out that there are usually myriad causes in various parts of the system that cause a crash, rather than just one or two errors. System science and complexity system science. Anywhere in the world today where you hear people teaching system science alone and using those words system science, that's incorrect and probably a weak program. Only complexity system science should be taught in the 21st century. System science refers to the Peter Senge, J. Forrester, Dynamo, and Stella software that automatically solves sets of second-order differential equations generation of modeling systems. And this was quite generally put into question by key journal articles in the 1980s, pointing out that anything with more than 10 causal variables in it had billions of configurations of those variables that would explain any one outcome pattern. There was no scientific way to determine which of those billion configurations of those 10 causal variables was actual and which were not. And therefore you weren't doing science when you had 10 causal variables into Stella or Dynamo. You were play acting. And that was corrected by Santa Fe Institute work on complex systems, 28 books by Addison Wesley and 10 books or so by Princeton University Press. And you have to use that as a corrective for the errors of the J. Forrester, Peter Senge generation. Number five, quality science. This is the miracle that the Japanese created an anti-culture to traditional Japanese management culture that corrected three big weaknesses in traditional Japanese management culture. And it was so powerful that it went around the world and made 11 industries dominant around the world. And they did that by totalizing the treatment quality in about 10 or 11 ways, and then by globalizing it in about 20 ways. And the question is, what other body of knowledge, if totalized those ways and globalized those ways, would have equal worldwide power and effects? Attention science. With the web mediating everything that isn't face-to-face, fights for attention are everything. and smell attention, eye attention, hearing attention, idea attention, status attention. Attention science is going to be the dominant science in a similar way to the way stem cell biology is going to be the dominant science, hard science. Biosense replacing mechanical sense. Because Harvard has 3 biology departments now and 1 physics department, and MIT has 3 biology departments and 1 physics department, we can see concretely that the bets are being placed on the table that biology is the dominant science of our next 100 years. And therefore, the image of what's good and excellent is shifting to biological systems as what's good and excellent from mechanical common sense, which we've had for centuries. And so now steel is not our model of strength, but rather bone is our model of strength. Bone grows stronger where it's most stressed, and bone detects its own flaws and fixes them. And then chance science. Since the brain in 180 ways misreads probabilistic information and inputs, creating a chance science that counteracts a science of the counters to those flaws in our brains is very important for good performance in any system. Now, these are the brain bias area of development of new science and new techniques and new methods for our future.